Good evening, everybody. How are you? Good, good. Thanks so much for being here. I know how hard it is to come out at night, right, after you've worked all day. And my wife will tell me, we're going out tonight, and I become a 5-year-old little boy that loses that bone in his neck. You know, I don't want to go. And she's like, but you're the speaker. And I'm like, okay, I'll go, you know. But yeah, so I get to travel all across the United States. My name's Lozano. I am a drug and alcohol prevention specialist for the state of California, also a drug and alcohol counselor. Have been working in the field for quite a while, and started off working in treatment, but because I come from a non-use background, never been drunk, never smoked a cigarette or did anything like that, it was real difficult for me to work a little bit in the treatment field because I trusted everybody so much. So I was in a 1-year residential program, so when guys would tell me, hey, we're just going to run and grab a Snickers bar, we'll come right back, I'm like, okay, get me one too. And, you know, and 3 days later they'd come back all messed up again. You know, and I thought maybe I should switch. So I started working in the prevention field. So I like working in the prevention field. I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of different groups. One of the groups that I worked with for a long time was Partnership for a Drug-Free America. And I'm sure you've seen their commercials on TV, right? This is your brain on drugs was one of them. And we did this one commercial, man, we were so proud of it. It had this, it showed this minivan going down the road, and it showed the mom driving and the son was sitting over here, and all you hear are the tires on the road for the whole commercial. And then she pulls up to the school, drops the son off, and the minivan takes off. Do you guys remember this one? No? And anyway, it says right after that, it says, another missed opportunity to talk to your kids about drugs and alcohol. Now you guys remember that one, right? Yeah, yeah. And so we put this together and we sent it out, and you know, we thought, yeah, good job. You know how that works, right? And so then we did a survey about 4 months ago, and parents said, terrific, we love it. We don't know what to tell our kids. And I'm like, oh, you know, so we decided to develop a parent program back in the day. And so some of this is going to be coming from the parent program that we used to do. A lot of it's through education, through different things that I've read and different things that I've learned. Throughout the course of this evening, if at any point you have any questions or you're wondering about something, do not be afraid to ask. My primary group that I always speak to is junior high and high school kids. So when everybody's focused on me, it kind of freaks me out a little bit, okay? So if some of you could text and have side conversations, a few of you put some earphones in, that would really help me out right now, okay? Because yeah, it throws me off. But we're going to talk a little bit about addiction, and I'm going to mix it all together. We're going to talk about addiction, why kids get addicted, how to get your kids addicted to what you have going on, how to find those buttons inside your kids' heads, what takes place, how to have a conversation with your kids, because I know we have some youth in the room, but when you're speaking English to your kids, you ever look at them and think, they're not getting this, right? Yeah, you're speaking English, but you might as well be speaking Mandarin Chinese to them because they're just looking at you like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's all about brain development. So I'm going to take this really complicated information that I learned over many semesters of school, and I'm going to break it down so you guys can understand it. Again, do not be afraid to ask questions, even if I'm in mid-sentence. Any of that, because I'm here for you guys, and I want you guys to get the best possible information that you can. Good? Can we agree on that? Okay, good, good. Addiction, where does it start? How does it happen? Why do kids become addicted? Why do they have that personality, or not personality, but why do they use drugs and alcohol, sometimes at a real early age? Average age where kids try alcohol for the very first time in the state of California is age 11 and a half. That's where kids encounter alcohol for the very first time. Not so much where they start drinking, but that's where they encounter alcohol for the very first time. Some of the things that I hear from parents in different communities and stuff is, well, if kids are going to drink, I want them to drink at my house so they're safe. That's really dangerous, so we're going to talk about that. Inside our head, here we go. Inside our head, we have this button, okay? We have about 10 billion of these buttons, but we're going to talk about this one button in particular. And on this button, it says reward. And every single thing we do in life, everything has to hit this button. Otherwise, the brain's not going to do it. Reward. So everything that we do, somehow the brain says, I have to have a reward for this. Everybody's brain, especially when you're a youth, everybody's brain is unbelievably lazy. It is. Everybody's brain is unbelievably selfish. Whenever you eat food, the brain goes, I get the lion's share first. I'm going to take what I want, and then I'll divvy everything out to the rest of the body. So the brain is unbelievably lazy, unbelievably selfish, and it looks most of the time for the quickest, fastest, easiest way out of every situation. As we get older, our brain starts to change, but for kids, they look for the quickest, fastest, easiest way out of situations really fast because that's how their brain works. If it's a painful event, our brain doesn't know what to do with that. What is amazing about our body is designed for pleasure and our brain is designed for pleasure. There's, let's say, 60 people in this room. At the end of today, 59 of you come up and you're like, oh gosh, great job, terrific, man, let's just sing songs about you, we love you. A couple of guys are trying to hold me up over their head and you're just singing and you're so happy. But this one lady right here with the glasses comes up to me and she's like, man, you just didn't hit it. You'll get it next time, Tiger. You know, don't worry about it. Everybody has an off night. Not that you would do that, right? But yeah, okay, yeah. Who am I going to think about the rest of the night? Right, right? Because our brain doesn't know what to do with that information. Our brain's designed for pleasure and it puts it in different spots. So if we have something pleasurable happen to us, our brain absorbs that and it holds on to it and says, man, let's do it again. But if it's painful, our brain goes, man, where do I put that? Where do I categorize that? And so it looks for places to put that. That's why journaling is really good for people that have gone through traumatic events, because their brain goes, if I need that information, I can find it right there in that book. But it needs to have a place where it's going to put that. Kids look for the quickest, fastest, easiest way out of every situation. Your child walks on campus tomorrow into their health class, and the teacher says, in 2 months from now, on what is tomorrow? Wednesday, Thursday. 2 months from now, on Thursday, you need to walk into this classroom with a working model of the human digestive system. Your kid has 2 months to do that. When do they start on it? Right, yeah, Sunday night at 10:30, right? Yeah, they're like, Mom, where can I buy hamburger meat, you know, or something, right? Because that's when they're doing it. We've all had that, right? Mom, I need cupcakes tomorrow and it's 10:30 at night, right? Because their brain puts that off for as long as it possibly can because it's a painful thing. Our brain loves fun, it loves exciting, it loves new, and it has to have a reward for every single thing it does in life, everything. If you think about it, there's a reason why you came tonight, and your brain goes, I'll go tonight because, boop, I'm going to get a reward, okay? Now understand this. Your child has a good night's sleep, boop, your brain gets a reward. When they walk on a campus where people know their name, and they say, hey, good morning, Charlie, or whatever your child's name is, boop, it gets a reward. When they're part of groups like this, where they're doing stuff in the community, they're getting involved, people realize, oh, you're part of that group, that's really cool. Boop, they get a reward. So every time, boop, you hear that noise, what your brain is getting is a chicken nugget, okay? And this is the only food your brain's gonna eat is a chicken nugget. Boop, chicken nugget, boop, chicken nugget, boop, chicken nugget, okay? Now this chicken nugget is made out of serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Any vegetarians in the room? You get a soy nugget, okay? But you're still gonna get a nugget, right? I always feel so Hispanic when I say that, soy nugget, you know? But yeah. But your brain has to hit this reward button for every single thing it does in life. If it cannot hit the reward button, it's not going to do it. I'm probably the only person in this room that's tried to lose weight at one time or another, right? Week number 1, I cut out desserts and carbs and all that kind of stuff, and I get out there and I sweat early in the morning. I step on the scale and I'm down 2 pounds, right? And my brain goes, yeah! Following week, I give up carbs and I exercise and I cut out all this stuff and I step on the scale. I'm only down 1.5 pounds and my brain goes, what? Yeah, right? 3rd week, I cut out carbs, I exercise, I do all that stuff, and I'm up 0.5 pound. What does my brain do? Yeah, we're done, right? Yeah, no more of this stuff, because it did not get the reward for that, especially for something that's painful as giving up a dessert. So the thing that happens is your brain has to hit the reward. Does that make sense to everybody? This is what drives us as human beings right here, is this reward button. We're going to talk more about this. Anybody have a dog? Who's got a dog? Who's got a big dog? Big dog. You got a big dog? What kind of dog do you have? A what?
Oh, it's just a retriever.
It is? Okay, thanks. Yeah, you threw me out there for a minute. Let me ask you this question. Yeah. Does anybody have a child that has to clean up after that dog? Who has that situation, right? Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. So what kind of dog do you have? Black lab, okay. And what's your black lab's name?
Ruby.
Ruby. Oh, that's a good name. Female, I take it? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I like when people name their dogs correctly, right? When you get that dog that's named weird, I just see him hanging out with other dogs, and the German Shepherd's like, yeah, my name is Tyrone, you know. And the Rottweiler's like, I'm Max. And the other dog's like, I'm Daisy, you know. You know what dog gets picked on, right? Yeah. All right, so you got Ruby, and you have a child, right? How old is your child?
14 and 11.
14. Which one has to pick up after the dog? Oh, both of them. Good, good. That's actually really good. And yeah, about having chores and stuff like that. Now, do your kids wake up in the morning like, yes, I get to pick up dog poop, right? No, they don't. They're not like, hey, Ruby, make me a fresh one, right? They don't do that, right? No. Do you have to fight with your kids a little bit to pick up that dog poop? You do, right? And they put it off as long as they possibly can. Nobody likes doing that job. I hate it. I got to do it every now and then. I feel like when I'm picking up dog poop, that's when the aliens are going to come down right there, right? Who's going to look like the leader, me or the dog? The dog, right? Yeah, I don't want that. So I'm like hurrying up, picking up, man, looking around. But, okay. So your kids hate picking up dog poop. If they hate it, why do you think they do it?
We threaten and
Right, right. They don't want to be hollered at, right? Okay. Even though that seems unbelievably simple, their brain had to go through this whole process. I will do this terrible job that I hate, and the reward that I'm going to get is, boop, mom won't be mad at me. So the brain has to do that. As parents, what you have to find out is how do you go in your kid's head and find out what that reward button is. Is it possible to do that? Yes, it is. I work with probation kids. I just had this challenge put on me by Riverside County Probation, DA's office. And they said, we want you to come in and we want you to change the attitude of our probation kids who love marijuana. They said, our kids don't want to come to the program. They don't want to be involved in this. They come reluctantly, they show up late, and all they're thinking about the whole time is how do they get out of here. So they asked me, find a way to go inside probation kids' heads and hit this reward button so they want to be in this program. So we looked at the program for a little while. We tried to figure out what's going on, what's not going on, and it's a program that we ran at the hospital, Loma Linda Hospital, years ago as well. We figured out how do we go in and we hit this reward button. One of the big things that will hit a probation kid's reward button inside their head, super easy, this is groundbreaking information, smiling at them. That was it. When we smile at each other, or when I smile at a probation kid, all of a sudden inside his head he goes, boop, reward. And it hits this little reward button. Because how often do you think probation kids get smiled at? Not very often, right? And then we shake their hand. And then again, it goes in their head, boop, reward. And then we follow up with conversations that we had the week before, and boop, reward. So you have to figure out, how do I go in my child's head and become the reward for them and understand that, boy, they're going to be addicted to this. So the thing is, you have to figure out how to hit that reward button. How many of you think your kids hate school? Quite a few of you, right? Yeah, I mean, it was tough for me. If kids hate school, why do they go? Because you guys force them to, right? Or the law says, right? Because someday, as parents, you want your kids to go where? College, right? So someday they can have a job, right? And someday they can buy their own house, right? And fill their house with all their stuff, right? And then, and then have a yard sale, right? Yeah. I know that's why I've had these many years of college, so I can put all my stuff out in the driveway and people can buy it for $1 or haggle over it, right? Yeah. But the thing is, kids, yeah, they have to figure out the reward button inside their head. How do we hit this reward button inside their head? Let me show you how strong this reward button is, especially when it comes to drugs and alcohol. Two things every living thing has inside of it. Two hardwired things that every living thing has. They cannot escape this, okay? Two things. Every duck has this, every moose has it, every rabbit, every lion, every human being is hardwired with two things inside of it. The first one is to survive. Basically, food. Everything wants to eat, okay? So the thing is, everything wants to survive. Our brain loves the thought of surviving. It does. Think about every movie you've ever seen. American Sniper, Fast and Furious 7, Star Wars, all of this stuff. Movies are based on this right here. The news knows at the end of every hour, that they're going to show some type of survival, some kind of human interest story, because it's going to keep you coming back, because the brain loves this. Food. When we're eating, when we're participating in that event of eating, our brain goes, yeah, we're going to be okay. This goes way back to when we were hunters and gatherers, but this is a concept right here that our brain has. Loves to survive. Does that make sense? Anybody have an idea what the other thing is that's hardwired in every living thing? Right, good. Yeah, he said that well. Good, right? If I'm with junior high kids, I just call it making more, okay? Yeah. Making more. That keeps me coming back to the school next year. Every duck wants to make more ducks. Every lion wants to make more lion. Every rabbit wants to make more rabbits. Every human being, pretty much, wants to have an opportunity to attempt to make more, right? So that's two things that are hardwired inside of us. If I were to ask you guys, tell me the very best time in your life that you would like to go back and relive that day. For a lot of people, it's going to involve these two things, but for a majority of people, it's going to involve food. I was with my friends, we went out and we ate and we had a good time. And so the thing is, these are two hardwired things that are inside us. Now, I don't have time to go into uptake and all how cells, pull in energy and all this kind of stuff, so I'm just going to give you some real basic information. If tonight, after this, 4 of you got together and you went over to Chipotle and you sat there and you had a burrito and you drank a soda and ate some chips and salsa and you laughed and you had a good time, that event will go inside your head and hit this button 200 times. It's going to go in and hit this button 200 times. And the thing is, it's going to have this escalation where you're going to be really happy, and then it's going to have this kind of go down. But it has to hit this. Our dopamine receptors hit this. They took mice and they did a dopamine blocker so they didn't get any pleasure out of food. They put these little mice in a cage and they put food in there. What do you think happened to the mice? They starved to death because they had no pleasure out of eating. The second thing, if you have an opportunity to make more, during that event, it'll go inside and it will hit your head 400 times. So this is huge. These are huge numbers inside your head, 200 times and 400 times. If somebody does a drug like meth, how many times do you think meth goes in there and hits that reward button? Pretty close. Yeah, not 1,000, 900 times. 900 times.
Is that the first time or all the time?
Pretty much for quite a while, because it goes in. The first time it's going to be high, 900. The thing is, the brain has this homeostasis, so it's going to kind of push it back in. So it's going to not reduce the number, but it's going to feel like the number's been reduced. That's why people get a tolerance to different types of drugs. But it's going to go inside the head, and it's going to hit that button 900 times. This is why people become addicted to drugs so quickly, because a drug like meth goes in and it hits this reward button and says, yeah, this is great. The thing about e-cigarettes and tobacco, when somebody takes a cigarette or an e-cigarette and they smoke it, it also goes in and it hits this reward button. Right behind our left eye right here, we have a stop button, or a go button. Right behind your right eye right here. Right here in the middle of the brain, you have a stop button. So the thing is, when there's events that you tell yourself, oh man, I'm not going to do that, what's happening is inside your head, the stop button is getting hit. When you like an event, there's a connection and it'll hit the yes button. There's times when you'll start doing something and you stop, and what happens is the yes is going, okay, let's do this, and then it makes a connection that says no. The problem with tobacco is tobacco goes in there, or e-cigarettes, and it blocks that information. So it will hit the yes button, but it doesn't make the connection with the no button. That is why the addiction to cigarettes, hookah, e-pens is so tough, because it goes in and it hits the reward button. The other thing about e-cigarettes and stuff like that is every time somebody goes like this, what's happening is it's going inside the head and it's hitting the reward button on that. So that's why e-cigarettes and stuff is so dangerous. All the chemicals that are in there, they kind of block that. But it's looking for this reward button. Sir, right here in one hand I have $900, and in this one I have $400. You only get to choose once. Which one are you going to take? 900, right? Every time I bring that out, you're going to pick 900 over 400 all the time, right? That's what happens with a person that uses drugs. They get to the place where the thought of making more disappears, or the thought of even eating disappears. This is where a lot of alcoholics get, because what happens is their brain goes, man, I can sit here and get a reward and do nothing. Now, as we get older, as adults, we figure out if we work a little bit more, we get a bonus. If we, do this, we get this, and our brain starts making that connection. But for a lot of people that do drugs and alcohol, the brain goes, yeah, I'm lazy. I'm going to look for the quickest, fastest, easiest way out of every situation. So, man, if I can get that just sitting here, that's great. This is why youth get addicted to drugs and alcohol so quickly. For a kid that starts drinking alcohol, even occasionally, all it takes for them to become a full-blown alcoholic, where alcohol is starting to take over their life, is a matter of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. That's all it takes for somebody under the age of 21 to become a full-blown alcoholic. If somebody waits till age 21, it's actually age 23, and they start drinking, and they want to become an alcoholic, now it's going to take them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 years, not months. That's because the brain is trying to figure out, how do I hit this reward button? What is the quickest, fastest, easiest way to hit this reward button? Does this make sense, everybody? So the thing that you need to find out is what is going to hit this reward button inside your child's head. What is the thing that you can go in and go, boop, reward, boop. Is it playing sports? Boop, reward. Is it complimenting them? Is it making sure they have a good night's sleep? One of the things that NIDA, National Institute on Drug and Alcohol Addiction, came out, and they talked about how to keep your kids drug-free. And I'm pointing at you because you're having your kids pick up dog poop. That's really important. Yeah, believe it or not. There's a study that went behind this, yeah. And what it said is it's important for kids to have chores so they can do something, and then you go, good job, thanks for doing that. I know it's terrible, but I appreciate you doing that kind of thing. And it talked about cleaning out the dishwasher, picking up trash, and doing stuff for you. And I remember seeing that with my kids. Dad, that's your plate, pick it up. And I'm like, no, you can go ahead and get that for me. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, because they have to understand how a family works. So this is so important. Once you can figure this out inside your child's head, you can direct them in so many places. With our probation kids now, our probation kids show up early to the pro. Not super early, but 10 minutes early, so they're always there on time. And they have a tendency to linger afterwards because what's happening is we're hitting this reward button inside their head. You guys remember the game tag, right? I don't know how much kids play that or if there's even an app for tag now or not. But you remember actually going outside and sweating and playing tag, right? And and this will be the best example, what you can do for your child to help them become connected to your family and keeping them drug-free. I remember as a little kid, I would hide, right? And you'd find that perfect hiding spot, and that one kid's at the tree, and he's counting, and he's super fast, and I was a slow runner, okay? I was that little heavy kid that was really slow. I ran in slow motion. When I'd run, my little pants would catch on fire, and so, yeah. So I am hiding. That's base right there. And the kid says, 1, 2, 3, here I come, whatever it is. And so now I'm watching him, and he's walking looking for other kids, right? Now when he's at the furthest point away, in my head I think I'm going to run to base, right? So boom, I pop out of my little hiding spot, and I am running. Remember that feeling? And you're running, and then the kid sees you, and he is twice as fast, and he's running towards me. Everybody there? You know what I'm talking about? And your heart's beating, and you're like, oh my gosh, I am so close, I want to get there. And the kid's getting ready to tag you, and then all of a sudden you're like, boom, safe, and you made it. Remember that? When that happens, there's actually a chemical that gets released inside your head that makes you feel like, boom, I'm safe. What you need to figure out as parents is how can your kids come home from school and go, boom, I'm safe. The more you can build into your house, I'm safe, the more attractive it's going to be to your kids and to your neighbor's kids. You know what that means? That means your carpet is going to look bad every now and then. That means your sofa might be thrashed out. You know what else that means? That means, sir, you have to have the very best TV you can possibly get in that living room with the very best surround sound system, so kids are like, let's not go to the movies, let's go to your house and watch that. What's that mean? You have to have a freezer full of hot dogs, right? Yeah, you have to have that kind of stuff. We made that for our house. And so our house became that house where kids could come and they'd be like, boom, safe. How did I know this was working? One time at work, my son calls and he goes, Dad, how much bacon do you need for 35 people? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And he goes, you know, it's National Pancake Day, so we're making all these pancakes. And I thought it'd be cool to have bacon. I'm like, all right. So we run to Costco. Thank God for Costco, right? There's my plug for Costco. Okay, but yeah. Write me a check, Costco. Okay, but the thing is, that's what you want to figure out. How do you make your house safe? If any of you are wondering, just go sit at lunchtime for one period on a high school campus and listen to the conversations that take place. They're rough. Man, it's painful sometimes. Any kid with any kind of limp or an eye or overweight or something gets hammered on over and over again. And if you can make that in your house, boom, I'm safe, what's going to happen is it's going to hit the reward button. My mom taught me this years ago. My mom told me, when I was in high school, she said, son, if you guys ever want dinner before a football game or something, just come on over. Like, you know, as a kid, I'm like, okay, Mom, whatever. And so I would leave and, you know, go to the football games and hang out with my friends and everything. And one of those Friday nights after the football game, all us guys are hungry, and we reach in our pocket and we have, you know, like $3, a button, and some lint. You know, not much you can buy with that. So I remember my mom saying anytime we wanted to have dinner, show up. So I call my mom like at 9:30 at night, and I'm like, Mom, I said, there's a couple of us that want to come over for dinner. She's like, sure, fine, come on over for dinner, you know. So we all jump in the car and we head over to my mom's house, and she has her little nightgown on and her little slippers, and she puts out, you know, tortillas and beans and rice, whatever was left over, and the guys just mowed through that and ate everything, and we took off. They said thanks, and we left. Didn't think anything about it. A couple of weeks later, my friends are like, hey man, can we eat at your mom's house again? Her food's pretty good. I'm like, sure man, let me give her a call. So I call my mom and we head over there, and pretty soon it became like this thing. Like we would go to the house, my mom would cook dinner, and then we'd go to the football game, and it went from, you know, just 3 or 4 of us to like 12 of us, and it turned into this big deal, you know, and kids loved it. And so one Monday morning, probably after 6 months of this happening, I'm walking out the door, and my mom says, hey, she says, when you see Jennifer today, tell her I hope she does well on her test. And I look at my mom like, what? And she's like, yeah, tell Jennifer. She was talking to me, you know, about how tough this test is, and she's really nervous about that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my mom has been spying on me this entire 6 months, you know. So was my mom spying? Heck yeah, but she was doing it in such a sneaky way. My mom wanted to find out who my friends were. And so understand that. If you can build that into your house, it's going to change the attitude of how your kids are and how the neighbors, or how the neighbor kids, because if they can have that safe thing take place inside them, it's amazing what that does, because it goes back to this right here. The very thought of just having survival. The very thought, and then when you include food in that, it turns into a big deal. Drugs and alcohol. Crazy what our kids are going through and how quickly it affects their brain. One of the big reasons, try to think like a kid now. One of the big reasons why kids smoke weed. What do you think that reason is? Throw some idea. Peer pressure. Good one. That's good. That's a little bit of adult thinking. Let's keep thinking kid. That's good. Think of another one. Why do kids smoke weed? Don't think too complicated. Yes? Makes them feel good, right? Yeah, we'll take that. Makes them feel good. Yes? Be cool. That's in there, definitely. When we did our own little survey, one of the big reasons why kids smoke weed is because I am bored. Nothing else to do. Bored. I go down to Orange County. It's boring here. You got the Pacific Ocean, man. Yeah, we've seen it before, you know. I go up to, you know, Fort Yukon, Alaska, where there's 600 people. It's boring here. I'm like, okay, I agree with you on that one. But yeah, thing is, one of the big reasons why kids smoke weed is because they are bored. This goes back to sometimes tobacco as well. Kids are just bored. They have nothing to do. Now, when a kid smokes weed or does drugs because they are bored, what's happening is they're setting off this long-term thing that's going to take place inside their head. When a child is born, there's only 2 things that is hardwired, or 2 things inside of them. Infants have the fear of falling and the fear of being left alone. Kids aren't afraid of electricity. Little kids aren't afraid of electricity, dogs barking, sharp knives, broken glass, nothing. The fear of falling and the fear of being left alone. Now, when an infant cries and they cry for a little bit and then mom picks them up, what happens is inside them, their brain makes this connection that says, so I'm going to get picked up when I cry, somebody's going to take care of me. And if you nurture that and you take care of that, what happens is down the road, kids are able to trust other people and they make connections. Does that make sense? Okay. The other one, the fear of falling. Dads usually do a pretty good job helping kids overcome the fear of falling, right? So when a kid is little, I'm sure you've seen this, you know how the kid is standing on the edge of the pool, right? And dad is right there, and dad's like, come on, jump, jump, jump. And what's the kid do? No, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to. And they're totally scared. That's because their brain hasn't made this connection yet. So then the kid works up enough courage, and he jumps in the pool, and dad catches him. As soon as he comes up out of the water, what's the kid want to do again? Again, right? And like a half hour later, you're like, why did I start this, you know? And you're doing that thing. And I even seen this with dads, with little kids, right? Dad will take the little kid and throw him up in the air, catch him, kid laughs, mom panics, like, oh my gosh, right? Yeah, right? And then when you're gone, dad is like, yeah, check this out, right? Look at the air I got on that kid, right? And that's a good spiral, man. Look at, and catches the kid, right? And he has this total brain connection. Every time dad does that, the brain goes, I'm falling, but I'm not going to get hurt. I'm falling, but I'm not going to get hurt. So the brain actually starts making all these connections inside of it, saying every time I fall, that doesn't mean I'm going to get hurt, right? Now, if dad took the baby or the little kid and he's like, watch this, bonk, right? And the kid hits the ground, inside his head, different connections are made. So when they fall, there's a whole different thing. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Fear of falling, fear of being left alone. If you have teenagers, this is brand new to the brain. The brain is trying to figure out, what do I do with boredom? Right? Your kids walk in the house and they look at you and they go, I'm bored. And then you look at them and you go, well, go make the bed, pick up after the dog, do the dishes, read a book, you know, go outside. And then what do they say? That's boring, right? Yeah. And the reason why it is because kids' brains do not know what to do with boredom because it's brand new to them. You ever seen a little kid that sees their blood for the very first time? And they're like, I'm bleeding, right? Remember that? And you're like, that's not a cut. This is a cut, you know. I'm just kidding. I wasn't the best dad. Okay, but anyway, yeah. But you're like, yeah, that's nothing, right? That's just a little bit of blood. So the thing is, edit that part out later. Okay, but the thing is, boredom. Boredom is brand new to a teenager's brain, okay? Other than drinking alcohol or smoking weed, what are things, get ready, I need a lot of audience participation in this. What are things you can do when you are bored? Go. Sports, good. What else? Bake a cake. Walk the dog. Social network. Come on, jump on in here. Draw, good. Yeah, ride a bike. Keep going. Go for a walk, right? Build a model, good, right? Call a friend, good. Clean the house, my favorite. Instagram, good. Take a nap, right? Yeah. Music, good. Yeah. Walk, sit outside, right? Write a letter, start a little fire, all this kind of stuff. Put that little fire out, right? These are all things that you can do. This is what the brain is trying to figure out right here. What do I do with boredom? So it's in this big time search mode of what do I do when I am bored, okay? That's why the brain is like going through all of this. As adults, when's the last time you were bored? It's been forever, right? You look for those moments where you have nothing to do, right? Yeah, because our brain has figured that out. I literally have sat in airports for 4.5 hours and not once did I think, this is boring, right? Because I have so many things I can do. All right, let's take this one right here. Let's say this is talking to dad. Okay, this is from a teenager's perspective. Let's say this is talking to dad and getting 35 bucks from him and having him drop 2 friends off at the mall, okay? So 35 bucks going to the mall. What can your kids learn with 35 bucks going to the mall for 1 hour? What are some things they can learn? Can they learn time management? I got to be back at the car in an hour? Yeah, better use my time wisely. Math, good. They can learn math. Can they learn 35 bucks isn't going to go very far? Yeah, right? What else? Can they learn interaction with other people? Yeah. Can they learn patience standing in line? Yep, they can. Can they learn how to manipulate dad and ask him just right? My daughter has figured that out really well. She knows exactly the right time to hit me, and I won't say no. So this is what the brain is trying to figure out with all of these events. Now, you can do this with all of these events as well, as you can just continually do this on and on and on and on and on. What happens with kids that smoke weed is instead of when they're bored, their brain goes, oh, let's smoke weed. What happens is they don't learn very much of this stuff. It just kind of disappears because they're not experiencing that. Whenever they are bored, what does the brain learn to do? When I am bored, I will smoke weed, right? And so what happens is it makes a pathway because it's looking for the quickest, fastest, easiest way out of every situation. I am bored, so I will smoke weed. The problem is this becomes the answer to a lot of things. I am bored, so I smoke weed, and the brain goes, wow, that took that boredom feeling away. Let's try it with other stuff. So what happens is the brain begins to figure out that the answer to a lot of problems is smoke weed. I can't make it at home with mom and dad because they're always on my back. Do I try harder to figure this out with mom and dad, or do I smoke weed, right? I can't make it in high school. That teacher's totally against me. They keep putting more work on me. Do I try harder, or do I smoke weed, right? That guy wants me to show up at 9 in the morning, get a half hour for lunch, and get off at 6? Does he try harder for that guy, or does he smoke weed, right? So what happens is this one thing right here, when a kid smokes weed just because they're bored, really detrimental for the brain because it loses a little thing called self-soothing. The brain does not know how to take care of itself when there's nothing else around. It constantly needs some type of stimulation because it cannot answer the problems itself. One of the things that I hear from kids all the time, oh, the reason why I smoke weed is because I can't sleep. When you smoke weed just because you can't sleep, you're losing a thing inside of you called self-soothing. You cannot put yourself back to sleep. You need something outside to do that. My sister, love my sister. She's been in recovery for about 5 years now. My sister has done so much drugs, they can't put teeth in her mouth anymore. But she texts me all the time, do a good job, you're so funny, and always clicking stuff on. And so I see my sister starting to come back after 5 years of this crazy meth life that she has. My sister has lost the self-soothing thing inside of her for a long time. So she had trouble putting herself back to sleep. So my sister would be busy till she finally collapsed and fell asleep. She would not know how to lay there and put herself back to sleep. When you get further down the road, you lose all of this, not all of it, you lose a huge chunk of self-soothing. I don't know if any of you have drug addicts in your family or people that are way out there when it comes to drugs and alcohol, but don't they need help with a lot of things? They need help paying rent. They need help going to the grocery store. They need help with this. They need help with that. And we set up all these programs to help them, but what has happened is they've lost this ability for self-soothing. So the thing is, yeah, this is, kids' brains go to this right away. I'm going to give you one more piece of information. What time are we out of here? Whenever I'm done. Okay, good. Okay, good. Everybody still entertained? Good. Any questions? Okay. Here we go. We're going to give you some more information on how to talk to your kids and stuff, okay? Everybody's been around a 4-year-old one time or another, right? Okay. Anybody been around one of the good 4-year-olds? The kind you like? Right? Good. Yeah. They bake cookies with them, draw, right? And you have little conversations. You think, oh, they're so cute, right? Yeah. Who's been around that 4-year-old, you know, is the son and daughter Satan? Who's been around that one, right? Yeah. You look on the back of their head and they have that number, 6, 6, 5.5, and you're like, oh, little Damien's close, right? Okay. Audience participation, here we go. 4-year-old sitting on a sofa watching TV. Somebody comes up and changes the channel on a 4-year-old, what do? They cry, right? Yes. Okay. 4-year-old has their favorite little blanket. Somebody rips that blanket away from them, what do? Cry. 4-year-old wants to go outside, they can't go outside, what do? Cry, right? 4-year-old, time to go to bed, they don't want to go to bed, what do? Cry. 4-year-old wets himself, what do? Cry, okay? This is how a 4-year-old's little brain works. small letter I over a big, huge letter E. I stands for intelligence. E stands for emotion. Okay? Now, the way the human brain develops, it develops from the back to the front. So the very first thing that gets developed in a kid and a child is vision. Okay? As a hunter and gatherer, we needed to have vision. And then pretty soon, motor skills came into play because you needed that to hunt down animals. The very last part of our brain that gets developed is the front part, which tells us do that or don't do that. Okay? So there has to be a place in our life where we're like, I have a sharp stick, I'm going to go chase that big, huge animal and try to kill it, okay? If that developed first, most of us would go, I'm not going to do that, right? Right? So the thing is, for kids, for infant, or 4-year-olds, very little intelligence, a whole bunch of emotion. Teenagers right now, muscle development. That's why we see a lot of sports and stuff and them doing that kind of stuff. You guys in this room, your brain functions on a whole different level, okay? You have a large I over a small e. You're sitting down watching TV, somebody changes the channel on you, what do? Change it back, right? Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Somebody takes your blanket away from you, what do? Get it back, right? Yeah. I had a lady stand up right here one time and go, you get a better lawyer, you get the house, the car, and I'm like, that is definitely intelligence, right? Yeah. Somebody tells you you can't go outside, but you want to go outside, what do? You go outside, right? There's a cookie there before dinner. You shouldn't eat that cookie, but you want the cookie, what do? Eat the cookie, right? Yeah. Time to go to bed, but you don't want to go to bed, what do? Stay up, right? You wet yourself, what do? You cry. There's some emotion left, right? You're like, dang it, that age came too fast, right? Here's what happens. Because of brain development that's happening inside kids, okay? Age 15, 16, 17, when a kid smokes weed during that period, what happens is it takes his brain from functioning on intelligence and it kicks it back over here. A lot of different drugs do that. I'll just put the letter D up there for drugs because there's a whole bunch of different drugs that do this. It stops brain development or slows it down, and so what happens is the kid's brain begins to function on, you get the word die. That's kind of cool, right? Oh, wow. Message. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. What happens is kids that use drugs, what happens is their brain gets stuck on an emotional level, not an intellectual level, okay? And I see this with people. This also happens with adults as well. One of the things that happens is it functions on an emotional level and not an intellectual level. Understand this. When you're talking English to your kids, you think you're speaking to them and they're getting it, but the thing is, you're talking intelligence, which your brain would get. Kids' brains function on an emotional level. So if I were to tell all of you right now, don't drink too much alcohol because you're going to get in a car accident and you have the potential of crashing into another car, right? For you, that makes complete sense, okay? But even though you tell a kid something like that, it goes in, but because his brain is only really gathering up emotional stuff, the thing is, his brain doesn't hold on to that. For a youth's brain, sometimes, because frontal lobe development hasn't happened, sometimes they actually have to go out and do that thing to figure out if that works like that or not, right? You ever told little kids, don't stick that knife in the electrical outlet, right? And what do they immediately want to do? Stick it in the electrical outlet, right? Don't put that in your mouth. What do they immediately want to do? They want to put that in their mouth. That's because their brain goes, I don't know how that works, so I have to actually try it out to figure out if it's going to work. What you need to do as parents is you need to figure out, how do I talk to my kid on an emotional level, not an intellectual level? So this takes a little bit of practice, but once you get it down, you can start speaking emotion, okay? I'm going to use you as an example, sir. Hopefully this hasn't happened, so I'm just going to take a chance here. Me and this gentleman are really good friends, okay? We've been friends for a long time. Some Saturday morning, he comes over to my house and he knocks on the door and I open it up and I look at him and he's really sad. And he looks at me and goes, man, my dog died today. And I look at him and I go, oh man, that's tough. Let me show you this chart, okay? Now your dog was a golden retriever. Most golden retrievers last to age 11. Yours lasted to age 13, so you got 2 extra years out of your dog, right? Most dogs die of cancer. Your dog didn't. And am I giving him good information? Yeah, I am, right? Is that what he needs right then? No. What does he need? emotional support, right? So I'll go up, I'll hug him, we'll cry it out for a minute, and I'll go, oh my gosh, man, you know, your dog, you got 2 extra years out of your dog. That's great, man. Am I giving him the same information? Yes. Am I coding it with emotion? Yes. So I'm making that connection. What happens right here, what a lot of parents do, and I've talked with kids over and over again, kids get in trouble, and I'll ask them this question. Did your parents talk with you, or did they talk at you? 99% of the time, the kid will go, they talked at me. They didn't talk with me. You have to learn how to talk with your kids about drugs and alcohol. You have to learn how to talk to them on an emotional level. Once you figure it out, it's really cool because you can have these conversations. My sister functions on an emotional level. Once I learned this information, I could now talk to my sister again because I wanted to talk to her on an emotional level. My daughter. I wanted to teach my daughter what kind of guy to date when she got older, okay? Now, did I sit down with a flip chart and go, this is what you need to do, here's how you do, look for this, but don't look for that, and look for that? No, I didn't do that. Here's what happened. Just give you an example. My daughter's on the floor when she was about 5 years old. I come home from work. I had not planned this, but my wife and I talked emotion to our kids a lot. I come home from work. My daughter's on the floor, and she's playing with the Barbie dream house. You guys remember that Barbie dream house? Cool, right? Yeah, 2 levels, and it had the elevator, so it was handicap accessible, right, to the top floor. Had the swimming pool, jacuzzi in the back, right? She had it all. She had the camper, the little red Volkswagen, she had Barbie, she had all this little dream house stuff, right? So I come home, and there's some type of crazy sorority party going on in this dream house. My daughter has all her little Barbies and the little off-brand Barbies, and they're all playing and having a good time. So she looks at me and she goes, Dad, will you be Ken? All right, I'll be Ken. So I get my little Ken doll, you know, and I'm out on the outside of the house, and all this little music and stuff is going on, and the Barbies are having a good time, and here comes Ken, and I knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Little Barbie comes over, and she goes, who are you? And I go, I'm Ken. And she's like, cool. I said, can I come in? What did Barbie say? Sure, come on in. So now you got one Ken doll back there with these 7 or 8 sorority Barbie dolls, right? And we're having a good time. So then I look at Barbie and I say, gosh, you know what? I really don't have a place to stay right now. Can I stay here at the dream house? And what did Barbie say? Sure, man, stay at the Barbie dream house. And I'm like, I don't have a job. I said, but I sure could use that little red Volkswagen to get around and look for a job. Can I borrow that little Volkswagen? And she said, sure. And I'm like, I'm really broke. Can I have some cash? And she's like, sure. And everything was like, yes, sure, stay, take my car, live in the house, all that kind of stuff. So about a few minutes into this game, I just kind of like hit this pretend pause button. And I said, honey, I said, go tell Mom what we're playing real quick. So my little daughter, she gets up all happy and she runs into the kitchen, and I hear this little conversation going on in the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. And then a few minutes later, I hear those stompy feet come back into the living room. She grabs all her little Barbies and she comes up to Ken and she goes, you're going to have to leave now. When you have a job and a car and a house, you can come back and visit us, but right now you got to leave, right? Did I teach my daughter about who to date? Yes. Sure I did, right? Yeah. Did I sit down and do it with a flip chart? No. What I did is I figured out a way to wrap that information in emotion with my kids. I wanted to teach my kids, don't run from cops. If you get pulled over, do not run. Simple, basic thing, right? You think you would understand. How did I do that? Well, we sat down and watched cops on TV. That's what we did. So we're watching TV. Cop pulls up behind this car. This guy jumps out of the car, takes off running. I hit pause on the TV. I'm like, son, what do you think's going to happen? That guy's probably going to get tasered, or they're going to cut loose a dog. I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. I hit play. Dude takes off running. Cop hollers taser. Dude gets tasered. Did I just teach my son about not running from cops? Yes, I did. So the thing is, you want to figure out, how do I wrap all of that information, important information, for my kids in an emotional thing? Kids have what are called teaching moments, where their little brain opens up for 1 second and you can stick one piece of information in there and then it's going to slam shut. But you just want to be able to put that in. I want to teach my kids about going to college. pull up to a stop sign, there's a dude or somebody holding a sign saying, we'll work for food, or any kind of donation will have, help. Now, I don't know this guy's story, but I'll look at my son and go, how do you think that happened? How do you think that guy ended up there? I don't know. Maybe he was working and didn't have this. But I know this. If you're taking notes, write this down. Whoever asks the question guides the conversation, okay? So the best way to get information across to your kids is ask a lot of questions, but in your mind, know where you're going with these questions. What do you think happened to that guy? How do you think he ended up on the side of the road? Do you think he went to college? Do you think he has a college education? My son might say, maybe he does. I'm like, well, then if he has one, why isn't he using it? So I'm just going to ask a lot of questions, but I know where I'm guiding that. So a lot of times you want to engage your kids in emotion, and you do that through asking questions. Again, it's going to be brand new to your kids. You're going to ask them a question. You're going to get that, yeah, good day, fine, whatever. So you want to go back to hitting that reward button. Parents will come up to me and go, my kid came home drunk, what do I do? And I said, what did you do when your kid came home drunk? Well, we sat up from midnight till 3 in the morning, and I explained to them how bad alcohol is. I'm like, do you think that helped? And they're like, no, it did not, right? Everybody just ended up getting mad, because as parents, we want to immediately fix the situation right then, right? They tell me, well, what do I do? I said, here's what you do. Put your kid to bed. If you have to sit there all night so he doesn't vomit, sit there all night with your kid. Then the next day, you figure out their favorite restaurant. You take them to their favorite restaurant, you get them bacon and eggs and toast, and you sit there and you don't grill them, but you just ask them questions. What happened last night? Why do you think that took place? And just allow them to start discussing this kind of stuff. For your kids, just ask a lot of questions. They're not going to be used to it at first, but after a while, they'll get into the routine of this is going to be questions. Don't ask questions that are going to be like trying to get information across, just generically ask questions. When I get my probation kids in and we do counseling with them, all we do is just fire off questions, all kinds of questions. What's your favorite cookie? Oh, really? That's cool. What's this? We ask questions. And then finally, in an hour interview, the entrance interview that we do, about 20 minutes into it, I'm like, why are you here? You seem like a good kid. Why are you here? Well, man, I ran into a grocery store, stole a bottle of alcohol, and ran out. I'm like, that's why you're here? Like, yeah. Do you think alcohol has anything to do with that? No. If that cop hadn't been there, I wouldn't have been caught. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, let's go with that. So then I continue to ask questions. Well, how are you doing in school? Not really good. Like, what are your grades like? They're like D's and F's. Do you drink during the week? Yeah, I drink during the week. Do you think alcohol has anything to do with that? No, it's that teacher. So the thing is, they're going to continually blame it onto everything else. And then after an hour, we get to the place where like, wow, dude, you know what? And I've said this a million times. Yeah, you're not very good at drinking. I mean, you've gotten in trouble here. You're losing your grades. Your parents are having trouble with you. Now you're in a 1-year probation program. And if you look at that, alcohol runs through a lot of that, right? And all of a sudden, a lot of times kids are like, oh my gosh, you're right. They just don't get it because nobody has strung all that stuff together. So the thing is, the way that you want to get information across to your kids is through an emotional level. I know we're at 7:30. Questions. Let me take some questions. Thoughts. Before I do that, I put out a blog once a month that has a ton of information on it. Drug and alcohol information. It's only once a month, and when I do the blog, I send it out, and then there's like 3 different things underneath it. What it is, it's a lot of studies that people have done. And so there's 2 types of websites out there when it comes to drugs and alcohol. There's the website like, yay, marijuana's awesome. And then you get the other websites like, boo, marijuana's bad, right? You've seen these, right? If I go over here and I type in, is weed good for you? What do they say? Heck yeah, man, smoke it. It's going to save the economy, right? If I go over here and I say, is marijuana good for you? What do they say? No, it's from the devil, right? Smoke it, go to hell, right? So which one do you listen to? What I look for are studies that are in the middle of the road, doctors that don't care. They don't care if it's good for you. They don't care if it's bad for you. So I sent out information on marijuana. A recent one that's coming out is a whole bunch of stuff on e-cigarettes, how much formaldehyde's coming out of it, how we need to change the name from vapor to aerosol because that's what's coming out of the back of these cigarettes. Yeah, and so they're tough. They're finding out that people aren't smoking less, they're actually smoking more because they're like, oh, this is safe. So they end up smoking more, and how detrimental it is for kids. We're going to pass around this little clipboard with some information on it. If you're interested in that, all you have to do is just very clearly print your email address And if you have a business card and you want to hand that to me instead of writing on that, I will take that as well. Let me take some questions, thoughts. I know I dumped a lot of information. Yes?
You didn't quite touch upon their kids are at the party and they want to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you kind of got cut to the why they're doing it because they're bored, but at a party you're not bored.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk more?
Yeah. There's a little bit of the peer pressure that happens in there. So kids want to be connected because it goes back to that survival thing. So they want to be connected and they want to have that. Now kids, some kids will experiment, some kids won't. There's a thing that Newsweek put out that talked about the herd. I'm sorry, let me repeat that because for the camera. The question was, touch on kids that are at parties, experimenting, that kind of stuff, yeah. Experimentation happens like the first 3 times. After the 3rd time, it becomes what's called use because they understand how it works. So one of the things that you need to set up with your kids is they need to have an understanding of what the policy is in your house when it comes to drugs and alcohol. And so again, you want to teach that through an emotional way, okay? So you want to make it clear, this is where we stand on drugs and alcohol. What are your thoughts on that? Can you contribute to that? Do you feel the same way? And once you kind of have a standard in that, then it's easier for kids to kind of know where they stand. Now you have to understand, when you make a policy of drugs and alcohol with your kids, they're going to fight against it, without a doubt, okay? And kind of what it goes back to, let's say I was blind and I wanted to lean against this wall, but I'm really tired and I want to lean against this wall, and I don't know if this wall is secure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push against it, I'm going to hit against it, I'm just going to kind of pound on this wall. Once I realize it's not going to move, then I can have comfort in resting against that. So that's what kids are going to go through. When you make a policy, they're going to, no, we're not going to do that. This isn't what we believe. So you need to have that conversation with your kids. So then the other thing is, talk to your kids. You're going to go to a party, right? Do you think there's going to be drugs and alcohol there? Yes. Do you want me to give you an excuse so you don't do drugs and alcohol? And I work with a lot of parents on this as well. If somebody offers you something to drink or smoke, tell them, my mom is a complete beep. And if I drink or smoke, I'm going to lose a lot of privileges. My mom may even drug test me. So what happens is it takes the pressure off the kid to go, no, I don't want to drink, I don't want to smoke. But they can blame it on something else, and that usually works out really well for kids. So I'm a real advocate in drug testing. I work with a company down there for parents to be able to do that, because kids will be, kids will tell me, well, my mom and dad, they don't trust me anymore. I'm like, you want to build that trust back super fast? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, let's do random drug testing occasionally. After you come back on a Friday night, let them drug test you. And kids that have done that and followed through that. So be the excuse for your kids in those situations, but have a real clear policy. And policy is such a weird word. Just have a clear understanding of where you stand when it comes to drugs and alcohol. The #1 influence for kids to use or not use goes back to their parents. So when you look at the NIDA research, are you guys familiar with 40 developmental assets? Okay, one person, right? Yeah. Oh, write that down. Put it on your phone. 40 developmental assets is something you guys really need to know about, because as a government, we spent a lot of money on this. We probably could have launched a rocket, okay? Because there's a lot of research that went into this, but your kids have to have 40 things inside of them not to do drugs and alcohol. If they have 35 of them, they're in pretty good shape. If they have 30, they're in good shape. If they have like 8, chances of them doing drugs or alcohol is really high. But it's real simple stuff about being, gosh, what is the word they use? Not attentive, being effective. It's where you're doing things on purpose. There's a word right there. Intentional. Thank you. Who said that? Good. You just won a prize. Okay. Good. Yeah. Being intentional with what you do. So some of the ideas that they have, real plain and simple. Okay. You sit down with your kid on a Friday and you go, I just made $1,100 working for the week, and we have $1,500 worth of bills. What do we pay? How do we work it out? And you let your kid work through that with you. We're going to go on vacation. We're giving you 2 days. What do you want to do during those 2 days? Let's put a little budget together. Let's figure that kind of stuff out. You're being intentional, okay? We did this with our kids. Our kids had like every Tuesday and Thursday, your responsibility to make dinner, okay? You got to plan the meal. You got to figure it out. And if we just eat cereal because that's what you plan, then we just eat cereal. And so after a while, kids, you're going to be intentional with those things. So as a parent, there's 20 things you have to put into your kid. Nobody else can do it. As a parent, you have to do it, but the other 20 have to come from the outside. So the thing is, as parents, you can manipulate those outside things. Do your neighbors know who your kids are? Do your kids have an understanding that there's a world bigger out there than them? So the thing about drugs and alcohol make people egocentric. The world, I am the world. Everybody revolves around me. Since I am the world, it is okay for me to break into your house and steal stuff because that's inside my world. Does that make sense? So with kids, kids are very egocentric, and you want to break them out of that egocentricness. They need to understand, this is why I do chores, because I am part of this family. This family is part of this city. This city is part of this state. This state is part of this country. This country is part of this world, and there's something bigger out there than this world. So the more you can build that into kids, the less likely they are to do drugs and alcohol if they have an understanding of how they're going to affect. What's that come through? That comes with kids just traveling sometimes and taking them to different places. A lot of my probation kids, I mean, we literally live 30 minutes from Disneyland, 45 minutes from one of the most gorgeous beaches in the United States. And I'll talk to these kids, you ever seen the beach? And they're like, no, I've never been to the beach. I mean, you never have paid $10 to get on the train, ride it down to Santa Monica. And they're like, no. So here we go with all these probation kids on the train. And it is just like amazing to them just to be on the train and then actually see the beach where movies are filmed and stuff like that. And you can see their little brain opening up. So those are the kind of things, being intentional. You'll learn that with 20 developmental assets. Long answer to the question. Yeah, everybody else is going to be afraid to ask questions now, right? Yes, sir.
I have one. So you took us there.
Uh-huh.
So you do have a child that has stepped out. You have your boredom. They step out and they go over weed.
Uh-huh.
And they're pretty early on to it. How can you encourage them to come back into the boredom box and educate them to address it?
Great question. The question is, once a kid has stepped out of the boredom box and has gotten to the place where smoke weed is the answer, how do you get them back over to the other side? Great question. There's all this research that came out and still coming out about how the brain gets affected. This one gentleman who did research, I'm trying to remember his name as I speak, came out and he found out when kids smoke weed because they're bored, they lose a thing inside them called self-soothing. But another thing that they lose is what are called negotiation skills. As kids, negotiation skills help you make it through life, okay? Here's a negotiation skill. When I was in 8th grade, when I was in 7th grade, we had an 8th grade bully. Okay, this was back in the day. I went to a little tiny school. Our 8th grade bully named Larry had a full beard as an 8th grader, right? You know, I don't know if you remember that kid. He got left back a couple times, right? I would watch Larry go up to kids, and he would slide his books in front of kids, and they would do his homework. I would watch him beat up kids. I would watch him take lunch money. I would watch him take kids' lunch. Typical bully, right? All right. Negotiation skills. I'm in 7th grade. Here I come, walking onto my campus with my little Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox, right? Wish I still had it. And here comes Larry walking towards me, all right? As an audience, here he comes. What can I do to live my life with Larry in it? Hurry, what do I got? What can I do? Run, right? Yeah, I could take off. Yeah, I'm not the fastest guy, but I could run, right? What are some other things I could do?
Hi, Larry.
Yeah, talk to Larry, right? Yeah. Could I hand Larry my lunch? Go, here you go, buddy, right? Could I reach in my pocket and just hand him my lunch money? Sure. Could I do his homework? Sure. If Larry was coming my way, could I go the other way of Larry? Sure. Could I get more friends than Larry? Sure. Could I tell a teacher? Sure. Those are called negotiation skills. That's what happens when kids do that. So once they found out, what happens is kids that use drugs find out, and their brain doesn't tell them I can go over, or around, or the other way of the problem. What their brain tells them is, let's eliminate the problem. Not every kid's going to go out and shoot somebody, but the way they deal with problems is different. What they found out when they found out this research, he's like, oh, this is terrible information. What do we do with this? How do you regenerate the brain with a kid that has lost self-soothing? Real basic, simple thing, reading. They found out if people that have used drugs for a long period of time or have smoked weed at an early age, if they would just read stuff, what happens is the brain will start making connections. They talked about reading little simple things like USA Today magazine or little tiny articles, and then moving up to bigger articles, because what happens is the brain has to make connections with things or bigger things. So the way to regenerate the brain from somebody who has fallen out of that boredom thing and you need to get them, push them back there, is reading. So yeah, I work with a judge, drug court. I'm sure you're familiar with drug court, right? So we were talking about this one day. So now he just assigns all of his clients and stuff books like Moby Dick, all this kind of stuff. So part of their treatment is they got to come back and report on these books that they read. So yeah, real basics. The problem is the brain has trouble retrieving information like that. So, other questions, other thoughts? Yes, sir.
What about addiction to video games?
Ah, video games. Yeah. We get, whatever's going to hit that reward button inside their head. We also have that with cell phones. So every time your little cell phone goes bring and you get a text, you know how hard it is not to look at your cell phone? Like I've heard mine ring 3 times, right, since I've been here, and I like want to go do that, but it does the same type of thing. The difference with an addiction to video games and cell phones and stuff like that is usually it doesn't rot your teeth or, you know, have you get in a car accident and stuff like that. But yeah, anything that's going to hit the reward button inside kids' heads are going to do that. Again, what you want to do is you want to expose your kids to things that are bigger than them, and it has a tendency to move away from that. Does that make sense? So just taking trips and doing that kind of stuff. At first, kids hate it. But then after a while, they get used to that, and their brain starts going, yeah, since this is something new, their brain doesn't know how to hit the reward button. But there's an addiction to that kind of stuff as well. So, good? Other questions, other thoughts? Going once? Going twice? Yes?
Can you tell us more about e-cigarettes and what else can be put in them besides tobacco?
Oh my gosh, e-cigarettes. Yeah, I'll cover this for a little bit more, but e-cigarettes are terrible. Yeah, and I'm not afraid to say that because they're from the tobacco company. So the thing about e-cigarettes, and I'll take a few minutes on this, way back in the day when they were developing tobacco, or they were making tobacco and stuff like that, the U.S. government developed this thing called the Food and Drug Administration. You guys have heard of that, right? So the U.S. government, because people were getting sick off of food and medicines and stuff like that, they looked at all the food companies and they said, all right, you guys sell food, you got to send it to us to make sure everything that people are eating is consumable. So they checked out all this stuff. Then they looked at the tobacco companies, and the tobacco companies go, we're not a food, people don't eat us. And they're like, yeah, you're right. So then they looked at all the drug companies, and they said, well, we want to make sure everything that people are putting inside them actually does what it says it's going to do. So they checked out all the drugs, and then they looked at the tobacco companies, and the tobacco companies go, we're not a drug. Nobody uses us like that. And the federal government goes, all right, you're right. Of course, there was a lot of money that came from the tobacco companies for a lot of this kind of stuff. So tobacco companies can put anything they want in cigarettes, and they do not have to tell you about it. They don't. They have so many different chemicals inside of cigarettes and e-cigarettes. It's really unbelievably detrimental. You have an e-cigarette, looks like this. In the beginning, or the front part of the cigarette, you have a little cartridge sometimes, and it has these different types of liquid in it. Then you have a battery, looks like this, comes out. And then you have this coil that goes around like this. Now when somebody sucks in on that, oxygen goes through here, picks up some of this, goes over the battery, activates the battery. This coil becomes super hot. This liquid goes through here, and out comes a vapor. The problem with e-cigarettes is they do not know what is inside this part right here. So there's all different types of chemicals that they are putting inside here. They are just finding out right now formaldehyde comes out of these e-cigarettes at a high level, stuff that we should not be putting inside our system. One of the big things that is inside here is a little chemical called nicotine. Nicotine is one of the strongest poisons known to man. If you took a regular pack of cigarettes and you removed all of the nicotine out of it, you'd have a little over a drop. If you put that on your skin or anywhere on your tongue, that would be enough to kill you. You can also find nicotine in bug spray. Whenever you spray like a cockroach or something, what happens is the nicotine lands on the body of the cockroach because it's little shells on the outside. It very quickly penetrates into the system and starts disconnecting everything, and that's why the little cockroach dies. So the thing is, when a person takes in this chemical, what happens is nicotine goes in with all the other chemicals in there, and it starts to hit that reward button. But it breaks the connection between the yes and the no button, so the no button doesn't get hit. And that's why it's so difficult to break cigarettes because of what's taking place. But so nicotine is one of the things that's found in there. The tobacco companies say that it doesn't do anything to it. It adds flavor to it along with tar. But that's why e-cigarettes are so detrimental, because we still don't know everything that's in there. But one of the things, or two of the things, formaldehyde and nicotine are in there. So it causes a huge addiction that happens really fast. Nicotine is the thing that will get you addicted to cigarettes. When I take nicotine in as a poison, real low level into my body goes, whoa, this is a poison, we got to fight this. So it begins to fight the nicotine, so the body builds up this huge army to fight nicotine. So when you don't have nicotine in your system, your body's actually craving the fight, looking for the fight. But what happens after a while, and kids will be like, oh, that's a good thing because you're going to get healthier faster, right? And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way, because after a while, everything is fighting this nicotine, and that's what you're killing your immune system, so that's why you get colds and stuff like that. Nicotine is the thing that will get you addicted to cigarettes. Tar is the thing that will eventually kill you. If you have 1 pack of cigarettes and you smoke 1 pack a day for an entire year, so 365 packs, you have about a pint of tar that's floating around inside your system. You have quite a bit of tar. And the last one is carbon monoxide. Not so much out of this, but out of cigarettes you get carbon monoxide. Same stuff that comes out of car exhaust. Yeah, so e-cigarettes, kids are picking up on that because they're like, oh, it's safe. And the other thing that e-cigarettes have done is they've made it possible for tobacco companies to advertise in magazines again. So yeah, they talk about how safe they are, take control of your life, right? And all this kind of stuff. So yeah, e-cigarettes are unbelievably detrimental. Good? Okay, other questions? You guys are ready to get out of here, right? All right, you guys, my name is Ray Lozano. Thank you so much for this opportunity.